Hi, I'm Max Whittier, and I'll be discussing the movie Stalker, directed by Andrei Tarkovsky. This movie was made in 1979, and it features Alexander Kedinovsky as a stalker, or the main character, his wife, Elisa Frendlich, the writer, Anatoly Solestin, and the scientist, Nikolai Grinko. This production was by Mosfilm. The cinematography was by Alexander Kedinovsky, and the British Film Institute actually ranked it 29 on its list of 50 greatest movies of all time. So during this period, in 1979, the Soviet leader was Leonid Brezhnev, and he led from 1964 to 1982. And this period was most associated with a re-Stalinization of the Soviet Union. The government was becoming more controlling on especially the arts, and it's also most often called the era of stagnation. And so this era actually led Tarkovsky, this was his final movie, because after this he was exiled for his artistic mind. The movie depicts an expedition led by the stalker who brings his two clients, the writer and the scientist, to a site known as the Zone, which is supposedly has the potential to fulfill a person's innermost desires, but at a great cost. A lot of people have died in it. The Russian government has locked it down, so they had to sneak in under gunfire to find it. And through their journey into the Zone, the running theme is the nature of human desire. And the stalker, the writer, the professor, they all come to similar realizations about themselves while journeying through this mysterious place, that their secret hearts and minds are unworthy of what the miracles that the room could provide for. And they would likely be granted the wishes that would haunt them, as the stalker before, the stalker now, had, who they call Porcupine. And Porcupine wanted to save his brother, wanted to reincarnate his brother, and that what he thought would be his innermost desire. Yet, when he stepped into the room, he came out a very, very wealthy man. So he found that really his innermost desire wasn't even his brother, it was money. And this haunted him to the point that he had to commit suicide. And Tarkovsky says that the hero, the stalker, goes through moments of despair when his faith is shaken, but every time he comes to a renewed sense of vocation to serve people who have lost their hopes and illusions. So the stalkers, it is a vocation to be a stalker, and all he wants to do is help people fulfill their innermost desires, yet most people do not have good innermost desires. And the Zone seemingly wants people and grants people their wishes if they are pure and good-hearted. Cinematography by Tarkovsky is quite amazing. There's usually no establishing shot to describe the space. Every time they enter a new space, you don't know where they came from. It's kind of confusing, but that's what the Zone is. And so there's an unknown purpose into unknown space. And this forces the audience to actively engage in the film and walk with the stalker and follow the stalker to this mysterious destination that we have no idea what it is. And all the sequences set outside the Zone were filmed in sepia, which is kind of a golden hue over the picture. And while the inside of the Zone was shot in color, a perfect reflection of the stalker's perception of his own life, with his journeying into the Zone representing a life truly lived and the non-action that takes place outside of it, kind of a life wasted. So when it's filmed in that way, he's not fulfilling what he truly wants, which is his innermost desire and what the nature of his human desire really wants him to do. And as many Tarkovsky films are, the takes are long and the camera movement subtle, so it follows a stalker, and then the stalker, they film it so it's basically he ventures into a territory of visual poetry. The dialogue doesn't really describe where he is or what they're really doing. It's kind of meant to capture our attention by mercilessly pulling us into a world of deep introspection, into not only the film but ourselves, but at the same time it keeps us on the edge of our seat. So as this film ends, I still didn't really have a good grasp on it. I didn't really know what the meaning of it was. I knew there was a meaning. It seemed very, very intricate and very full of meaning. But Tarkovsky puts it like this: the zone doesn't symbolize anything any more than anything else does in my films. The zone is a zone. It's life. And as he makes his way across it, man may break down or he may come through. And I think that really exemplifies how the film went through. The stalker always pressed on the writer and the scientist by saying, you can't go the same way you did before. You can't go back the same way you did before. And I think that's a good exemplification of what life is. You can't go back to the past. You have to go to the unknown future, and not the same way you did before, and not how others did before, and live your own life the way you wanted it. And as the film ends, and as the writer and the scientist and the stalker all decide not to go into the room because they realize that their innermost desires are not wholesome, they're not good, they're not what their zone seems to want. Just as Porcupine, who committed suicide after thinking that his innermost desire was to reincarnate his brother, yet it was money, and that destroyed him because he knew that he was not a good person, and so he committed suicide. But as the film ends, as the stalker, his wife, and his daughter are seen in the room, we also see the dog, who is a symbol throughout the entire film. While the characters don't really acknowledge the dog was only in the zone, but now the dog is in the real life. And we can kind of see it as a manifestation of the zone in the real life. And the dog seems to choose their daughter. And their daughter is really a symbol of the husband's and wife best attributes together. Her father's humble, honest self-awareness, and her mother's just pure love and admiration for her husband, who she could have chosen to have a rich life, a rich husband, but she didn't because she's sweet and pure. And her daughter is like that, a young, good-hearted, love-filled, undoubting girl. And so the dog has seemed to finally found someone worthy of bestowing these almost godlike powers to. And we see this when the girl is, in the last final scene, moving a cup on the table with her mind. And that's how the film ends, with the zone finding someone outside of the zone worthy of what the zone wants for us. To fulfill our innermost desires, but make sure that they're pure and good. Thank you.